Now we're going to move on to the next principle of the 7 critical principles of RDI. And this is the principle of guided participation. When we study societies and cultures all over the world, it's very clear that the way in which children become competent in dynamic systems is not through direct instruction. It's not through courses. You've never took a course in any of these areas of dynamic intelligence. But it's through acting as an inexperienced apprentice with an adult guide who gradually introduces you to more and more complexity in the world, and also gradually requires that you become more of a partner in regulating and in referencing. So in every culture in the world, parents are the ones who are primarily the reference points for helping their children to interpret and gain meaning from otherwise confusing experiences. And gradually, parents require the child to take more and more responsibility, in effect becoming junior partners and gradually holding up 50% of the work of keeping the system going. Along with being guides, parents in every culture learn how to pace their efforts based on the level of their child's competence. So they learn to modify the speed of their teaching style, their pacing, the degree of demands they place, the number of obstacles they place, so that the child can experience a sense of competence and mastery while still remaining challenged. So they continue to raise the bar gradually for the child based on their ability to demonstrate competence, adding more and more complexity. So this guiding and pacing, this guided participation, occurs in what we call a master-apprentice relationship. And clearly, we hope, it's the parent who's in the role of master and child that's in the role of the apprentice. To be able to do that, we need to focus on both sides of guiding and pacing. So as a parent, we're going to help you to make sure that you are the child's primary focus of attention. We also need to teach you to be selectively responsive to that child. What do I mean by that? What I mean is that if we try to take many children in the autism spectrum and guide them into productive uncertainty, any degree of uncertainty, their initial response might be upset, distress, or even anger. They don't have any of the storehouse of memories that would lead them to feel capable of entering those situations. The problem as a guide is, should you react to that initial response of the child, or should you keep going, knowing that if you never enter a situation of uncertainty, they can never develop the sense of competence? Well, of course, you're going to have to keep going. That doesn't mean we're going to ignore every piece of the child's distress. And in fact, as they move through stages, even when they get to stage 2 or 3, the feedback they start to give us about whether something's too hard or too complex becomes more and more useful. But in the very beginning, we may have to be selectively responsive to their feedback. The other responsibilities of a guide include inserting frequent episodes of productive uncertainty. And again, what is that? That's just the degree of uncertainty that is challenging without being confusing, right at the edge of excitement. As a guide, you also have to limit objects that compete for your attention. You certainly aren't going to be guiding this child into areas of uncertainty while they're playing Nintendo. You won't get much of their attention at all. You're going to be choosing the developmentally appropriate objectives, and you're going to be limiting the amount of variation and novelty the child or the apprentice brings into the encounter, making sure that they don't add variation until they are prepared to regulate it and be referencing whether it is overloading the system. Along with being a guide, you're going to be pacing. You're going to be simplifying the environment, making sure there aren't too many competing demands. You're going to develop modifications to address obstacles that we assess. You're going to slow down your pace while you engage in just the everyday activities of life to allow the apprentice time to understand their competent role. Not to just get through the activity, but to use it as an opportunity for learning about dynamic systems. In that regard, you're also going to limit your daily stress and the child's daily stress, so they have energy left over to learn to be competent in this very difficult area. You're not going to be able to get much done if the child is coming home from a day of school where they're exhausted and overwhelmed, they have 2 hours of homework, and then they're going to go to bed. There's not much energy there for addressing these core deficits, is there? You're going to make sure that a child masters objectives before you move on. You're not going to be satisfied by just getting something done, because you're going to be motivated and see the essential nature of the child developing memories that they can be competent. And gradually you're going to up the ante and slowly require more and more responsibility for regulating the interaction, that they become more and more responsible partners with you rather than having you do all the work. And in that same light, you're going to gradually reintroduce complexity. You're going to gradually add distractions, multiple demands, so that the apprentice, the child, is eventually capable of handling almost any kind of real-world situation.